The Phantom Battalion. Captain Robert Miller and his platoon were lost in the fog of war during the Battle of Verdun. Exhausted and disoriented, they stumbled upon a battalion of French soldiers who silently led them to a safe zone. As dawn broke, Miller noticed the soldiers wore outdated uniforms and bore the insignia of a unit that had been decimated weeks earlier. He turned to thank them, but they had vanished without a trace. Rumors among the troops spoke of a ghostly battalion, guiding lost souls to safety. Miller, now a believer, felt a chill whenever he remembered their hollow eyes and silent march. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, waiting to aid the lost, trapped in an eternal battle. Shadows of the Forgotten Front. Gallipoli, Turkey. Lieutenant Michael Johnson had always been skeptical of ghost stories, but one night, while patrolling the trenches at Gallipoli, he saw shadowy figures moving through the mist. Initially thinking it was the enemy, he soon realized these figures moved silently and without purpose. As he watched, he recognized the uniforms of soldiers from the disastrous Gallipoli campaign, their faces etched with eternal anguish. These spectral figures seemed to be stuck in time, reliving their final moments. Johnson's blood ran cold as one figure turned to him, eyes hollow and pleading. He fled the scene, heart pounding, unable to shake the feeling that he had witnessed the restless spirits of those who had died in that terrible battle, forever trapped on the Forgotten Front. Whispers in no man's land, Ypres, Belgium. Private Tom Baker was on a night reconnaissance mission in no man's land near Ypres. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sounds of war. As he crept through the desolate terrain, he began to hear faint whispers. They were voices of men, some speaking in languages he couldn't understand. The whispers grew louder, urging him to move left, then right, guiding him through the darkness. Terrified but compelled to follow, he found himself avoiding hidden traps and enemy patrols. Finally, he reached his camp safely. Breathless and shaken, Baker realized the whispers had saved his life. He later learned that countless soldiers had perished in no man's land, their souls trapped in the desolate expanse, guiding the living away from the same fate. The Haunting of Outpost Echo. Khe Sanh, Vietnam. Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez was stationed at Outpost Echo near Khe Sanh, a site infamous for its heavy casualties during the Vietnam War. One night, while on guard duty, he began hearing footsteps and faint voices. Initially dismissing them as his imagination, he soon realized the voices were speaking in Vietnamese and English, recounting battles and last words. The footsteps grew louder, pacing around the outpost. When he shined his flashlight, he saw shadowy figures of soldiers, both American and Vietnamese, walking aimlessly. Rodriguez's heart pounded as he recognized one of the figures as his fallen comrade, Private Lee. The realization hit him hard. These were the spirits of those who died there, unable to find peace. Haunted by their presence, Rodriguez couldn't escape the feeling that the outpost was a bridge between the living and the dead. Specters of the Silent Watch. Dover Castle, England. Corporal Jack Davis was on night guard duty at Dover Castle, a fortress with a long history of military defense. As he patrolled the ancient corridors, he noticed figures in old uniforms patrolling alongside him. The figures moved silently, their faces stern and focused. Davis watched in awe and fear as these ghostly soldiers marched through walls and vanished into thin air. He heard the faint clinking of armor and whispered commands in Old English. One spectral soldier stopped and looked directly at him, eyes filled with sorrow. Davis felt an icy chill and an overwhelming sense of duty from these ancient warriors, still guarding the castle centuries after their deaths. He realized Dover Castle was not just a historic site, it was a place where the past lingered, and its defenders continued their silent watch. The Cursed Bunker. Berlin, Germany. Lieutenant David Green led a team to explore an abandoned WBO2 bunker in Berlin. As they descended into the damp, dark corridors, a sense of unease washed over them. The air grew colder, and strange noises echoed through the bunker. Green spotted movement out of the corner of his eye, a shadowy figure darting across the hallway. The team found old, blood-stained documents and photographs of soldiers. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and Green felt a sharp, icy grip on his shoulder. He turned to see a ghostly soldier, face contorted in agony. The soldier whispered in German, warning them to leave. Panic set in as more apparitions appeared, their hollow eyes filled with despair. The team fled, but the experience haunted Green. He realized the bunker was cursed, a final resting place for soldiers who met horrific ends, their spirits unable to move on.
Ghosts of the Abandoned Barracks. Fort Stevens, Oregon, USA. Private John Thompson was on a training exercise at the abandoned Fort Stevens. As he explored the dilapidated barracks, he felt an eerie chill. Suddenly he saw shadowy figures in Civil War uniforms moving through the rooms. The air was filled with the faint sound of marching and distant gunfire. Thompson watched in horror as the apparitions reenacted battle scenes, their faces etched with pain and fear. One ghostly soldier turned to him, eyes pleading for help. Thompson's heart raced as he realized these were the spirits of soldiers who had died there, trapped in an endless loop of their final moments. The chilling sight left him shaken, a reminder of the past's lingering presence. Fort Stevens, once a bustling military base, now stood as a haunted monument to those who had given their lives, their souls unable to find peace. Echoes from the battlefield beyond. Waterloo, Belgium. While visiting the historic battlefield of Waterloo, Sergeant Mark Collins felt a strange energy in the air. As he walked the grounds, he began to hear the distant sounds of battle, cannons firing, horses neighing, and soldiers shouting. Suddenly, ghostly figures appeared, reenacting scenes from the famous battle. Collins watched in awe and fear as the past unfolded before his eyes. He saw soldiers from both sides locked in combat, their faces showing pain and determination. One Spectral officer, dressed in a British uniform, looked directly at Collins, as if aware of his presence. The officer's eyes were filled with sorrow and resignation. As the vision faded, Collins felt a deep sense of connection to the history of the place. The battlefield was more than a historical site. It was a place where the echoes of the past still lingered, haunting the present. The haunted hangar, RAF Scampton, England. Flight Lieutenant James Parker was stationed at RAF Scampton, home of the legendary dambusters. One night, while inspecting the hangars, he heard the unmistakable sound of engines roaring to life. Confused, he approached the source and saw ghostly airmen preparing their planes for a mission. The apparitions moved with purpose, checking equipment and communicating silently. Parker recognized one of the figures as Wing Commander Guy Gibson, the leader of the dambusters' raid. The ghostly crew seemed unaware of Parker's presence, their faces focused and determined. As the engines roared louder, the airmen climbed into their planes, which then vanished into the night. The hangar fell silent, leaving Parker in stunned silence. He realized the spirits of the brave pilots were still readying for their missions, forever bound to their duty. The haunting experience left Parker with a profound respect for the sacrifices made, their legacy echoing through time. The apparition in the foxhole. Bastogne, Belgium. During a visit to the Ardennes forest, Corporal Mike Reynolds found himself exploring the remnants of World War II foxholes near Bastogne. As he examined one particularly deep foxhole, he slipped and fell in. Trapped and disoriented, Reynolds felt a sudden, intense cold. Out of the darkness, a ghostly figure of a World War II soldier appeared. The soldier's uniform was tattered, his face weary and eyes hollow. He reached out and pointed to a narrow path through the trees. Despite his fear, Reynolds felt compelled to follow the ghost's directions. The spectral guide led him safely out of the forest. When Reynolds turned to thank him, the apparition had vanished. Shaken but grateful, Reynolds realized he had been saved by the spirit of a soldier who had died in those very woods, forever guiding the lost to safety.